What defines financial freedom for you?
The idea of a 30-year mortgage and just paying it down by working 9 to 5, it's not the way to do it. That benefits the banks, it doesn't benefit you.
The worst decision is no decision. It's all about time in market. They're essentially robbing their future self of opportunity by making no decision.
You think that achieving a certain status or a financial goal or some kind of award, you think that your life's going to change. Nothing really changes. I like cars, I like architecture, and I like being near the water, and all those things require money. Getting back to me, it's time. It's time to be able to do the things I want.
We can always go earn more money, we can acquire more assets, but we can't buy more time. Welcome to Own It, the property podcast. Real chats about money, property, and everything in between. I'm Adam Schall, I'm founder and owner of Locale Property Group. Today we're recording on the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. We're talking about money, the mindset, and what it means to be financially free. Today I'm speaking to Oumi Kapila, one of the founding members of Locale Property Group. He's a new home advocate and property investment strategist, and he's here to share his insights over 15 years experience in the property industry. Oumi, welcome to the Own It Property podcast. You've got about 15 years experience in the industry, come from a very diverse background. Love to hear about what inspired you to get into the industry and a little bit about your background as well.
Sure. So God, this is crazy, but it goes back to around 2009, I think. I'd worked in a few jobs leading up to that. I was laying floorboards. I was always playing music out in pubs and clubs. And there was a guy I used to work with at Telstra, and he left, and it was around the boom, when there was that big boom around 2007. Yeah. He was in the industry, and I sort of heard about what he was doing, and I thought, that sounds really fun. I always loved the idea of building and construction. I think that goes back to, if I had to really think about it, I had there was an old friend of mine. He was one of my best friends when I was younger. This guy Jared Portalisi, and his father was a guy Joe Portalisi, who now lives in Palm Desert, and he build some really high-end stuff out in Bighorn, Palm Springs, and those places. But I remember going to his place in Hillary's, and his dad's was always renovating whatever house they were in. Italian guy, great taste, great style, and I just remember I'd go over, and just the smell of concrete and the smell of renovations and just watching all the trades do the stuff. It was always really exciting to me, and just very naturally was interested in that. I always wanted to know everything about it, and later on, when I got a bit older, I did some work on building sites and whatnot, and
nice.
Just kind of enjoyed being around the bricks and mortar.
Yeah, I love that.
It's been a gift for me and my family, and something I've really enjoyed.
Absolutely.
I've built many times myself, and just out of the hundreds or maybe thousands of people that you sort of help over the years, it's pretty rewarding.
Absolutely. Such an important process, such an important part of their life, one of the biggest decisions they ever make.
Absolutely.
And you get to be a part of that.
Sure.
Really special.
Definitely, yes.
Cool. So run me through, what was the first property you ever purchased?
So first property, to be honest, I think it was the same process as pretty much most of the properties that I purchase. I'm generally looking for a client.
Yep.
And I come across something like, that's interesting, and most of the time I've offered it to a client, and if for whatever reason they can't or they don't proceed, I'll just go in and grab it myself.
Nice.
So the first one was a block of land in Piara Waters.
Nice.
It was a lady who I've worked with a lot over the years. Her name's Christine Young. She's lovely. She's a real estate agent around the sort of Southern River area, and she does a bit of land. So she had that listed, and it was a smaller block, but it was about 160 grand or something like that. It was ridiculous, and I thought, that sounds like a pretty good deal, and it was pretty safe, being in that lower end of the market.
Yeah.
So I grabbed it, and I'd only held it a couple of months, and I think I made about 20% on it. I thought, that was a really good exercise. In hindsight, I should never have sold it. In hindsight, I should never have sold any property ever that I've built or bought.
100%.
Because the profit, which was very enticing at the time, has now turned into 2 and 3x of that. So that's one of my lessons I learned from my early investing journey, which I now try to educate clients on, and just the benefits of holding and not only capital growth, but depreciation and all those things that we love.
Absolutely. Look, buying and selling is okay, but there needs to be some sort of strategy behind it. Potentially liquidating an asset so you can buy a potentially better returning asset, or buying multiple assets.
Sure.
But often it can get pretty enticing. If there's some money that can be made, you run and grab it, but then you're somewhat out of the market, and you miss out on some opportunity there.
Totally. I think there's definitely valid reasons for selling early when you have a profit. Not everyone's got the same goals, right? So
Sure.
Some people want to do 10 or 20 properties and really sort of gung-ho about that. And other people just want to pay off their mortgage and grab a boat and just relax. And I think that's also very valid.
Absolutely.
Perhaps even more valid.
Yep.
But yeah, if that's what the goal is and that aligns to the plan, I would really advocate for the path of least stress and most enjoyment while being sensible as well,
Sure.
which means putting your money into appreciating assets and making sure that they're working for you to achieve those goals as soon as you possibly can. Because the idea of a 30-year mortgage and just paying it down by working 9 to 5, it's not the way to do it. That benefits the banks. It doesn't benefit you. And if you do the math on that, there's calculators all over the internet that'll help you. But the amount of interest that you pay over that 30 years is astronomical. It's
Absolutely.
multiples of what your property will actually cost you to buy. So if you can sort of shorten that process,
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty powerful, and I think a really good motivator to start looking at ways of wealth creation and how to sort of get started in your investment journey.
So over the years, you've mentioned one potential mistake on hindsight, but over the years, what mistakes have you made, and what do you like to share, I guess, with potential customers?
Oh, that's a good one. So I guess we've touched on I guess holding's a pretty broad sort of statement, but we can look into why. The other one is just sort of where to put your money into the house when you are building an investment. So, one of the mistakes I made, I think, was not putting enough into the bathroom of the main bedroom. I went with something straight off the plan, didn't put too much thought into it. That property's gained a massive amount of equity, which has allowed me to do many other things by using that equity. But now that I look at it, the bathroom to me is a bit of a weak point on that. And as you know, you're an avid investor too. Bathrooms and kitchens sell homes, right?
Absolutely.
So on the subsequent ones that I've built, or that I'm building right now, I've made sure that the bathrooms and the kitchens especially are taken care of. And look, it's not, say you put another 10 grand into something like that, you're not actually paying 10 grand to do that. You're paying the interest on that, right? Which in the scheme of things is very, very little for what you get out of it. And what you get out of it will be a higher price on your home when you come to sell it, and you'll also sell it much faster.
Absolutely. And generally, if you're competing in a market as well from a rental perspective, at the moment it's very competitive, like there's no rentals, but that'll help you rent that property as well, because people do care how the home presents.
Absolutely. You need to stand out, right? And if it's another sort of 0.5%, well, it's not even going to be that, it'll be sort of 0.1% that you put into that cost of that property from the get-go. It might save you thousands of having to reno down the track. So going back to that I guess mistake, if you want to call it, is going. If I was going to sell the place, I'd probably have to renovate the bathroom. That might cost me 15 grand, right? So I would then avoid that mistake going forward. And other little things as well, like what's your ceiling height? So I didn't make any mistakes on that. I've always jacked the ceilings up. I'm a big fan of high ceilings. Especially in a climate in Australia where it gets very hot, the high ceilings do help with heating and cooling.
100%.
Cooling more so, as we know, heat rises. And put a bit into your elevation as well. Make it look nice. I don't advocate for getting too emotionally attached to investments, but think about it and go, right, well, what would I want to if I'm going to look at a home, what are the things that I'm going to look at? And it's got to be aesthetic. It's got to look nice. It's got to be enticing, like a nice meal, right? You go to a nice restaurant and it's presented nicely. It's got the garnish on there, and it's, you know, your tableware. That all sort of forms part of that process. So.
Absolutely. Generally, you fall in love with a home before you actually walk into it. If it looks and presents aesthetically beautifully, it's in a nice street, nice location, a good area.
That's right.
You've ticked most of the boxes. It's then, I guess, making sure the home is actually makes sense internally from there. So yeah, I think an elevation is super important. As you were saying with the bathrooms and specification, what we have noticed over the years as well, many of the builders have been increasing those specifications. So what was standard probably 10 years ago, which often was a rod and a rail and a shower curtain in a bathroom, these days they're semi-frontally shower screens, often hobless, which a lot of these things were upgrades. And I think that just proves the expectations of the buyer, the expectation of an owner is far higher. So, I think it is important to put those little 1%ers in a home to make sure that it does appeal to those broad masses.
Yeah, and I think on that point is that, you know, when you and I started doing this job, social media, I think there was Facebook, but it was something that you just went on to connect with your friends. And it wasn't the enormous... probably most important marketing machine out there, right? So things have gotten more competitive. There's a lot more sort of looking over the fence to what the competitor's doing, and as a builder, you've got to put your absolute best foot forward. And I think, you know, just the visuals, like you said, so back then, the norm was probably a shower curtain and a screen was an upgrade. Nobody does shower curtains anymore, and all the showers are pretty much hobless, right? High ceilings are standard now with some builders, and that never used to be a thing. You know, previously we'd have
LED downlighting.
LED downlighting throughout. You know, nobody wants a bayonet point anymore. They're very much old-fashioned, I guess. Right.
Absolutely.
So just those little things. So making sure that you're sort of up to speed with all those things and the right things are going in your home. And especially if it's your first home, there's a lot of things that you might miss. So I think it's you know, do your own research, but find somebody to work with that you connect. It's a big journey, right? It's not just a bunch of paper at the start and off you go. Well, it shouldn't be. Maybe it is sometimes, unfortunately, but I definitely think, especially for your first home and your first investment, a bit of guidance will go a long way.
Absolutely.
Right? So having that right sort of team behind you.
Absolutely. I guess something you find with customers, what's one of the biggest misconceptions and things that they have fear about from an investment point of view? Obviously, we've just spoken about some mistakes. What are some things that people have most reservations about and think they're going to, I guess, get wrong?
There can be a lot of, I can't afford it, or I'm just doing my research. I'm about a year away from it, where when we look at finance, they probably can do something. Look, no one's got a crystal ball, but I think that sort of statement comes without really a lot of, insight into what the factors are in the market right now. So if we take, you know, let's just take today as a great example, July the 10th or whatever we are, right? So we know that, we looked at this on Monday, there's about 3,700 homes for sale in Perth right now, right? So what does that mean? Well, to have a buoyant market, the general consensus is we need around 13,000 homes, probably a bit more now. That was a figure, I think, about a decade ago, but somewhere between 12 and 15,000 homes, let's call it, is what would be a buoyant market in Perth. We only have less than 4,000 homes for sale. Immediately, you can see that we have significantly less supply than we need to balance out buyers and sellers. So demand is crazy. When demand is that hot, there's no reasons for price to drop, right? Ideally, prices would plateau at some point, but we still have 50-odd thousand people moving to Perth, moving to WA this financial year. They've got to live somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
So we are continuing to face a supply problem. So by building an investment property, we're aiding that supply problem. A lot of people like to point the finger at the landlord. I would sort of ask, if people can't afford to buy, they've got to live somewhere, right? So they're going to have to rent.
Absolutely.
So we need to create those rentals for those people. I think waiting, if you're in a position to do something, just get your foot in the market as soon as you can. I think REWA is predicting, sounds wild, but 15 to 18 or 19% growth over the next 18 months.
It's incredible. Off the back of what we've been experiencing for the last 5 years is incredible.
Sure.
Yeah.
And while that sounds crazy, I think they said the same thing about 2 years ago, and I think whatever growth they predicted, it surpassed that, right? So, and the other factors that would influence that growth are where are we in the interest rate cycle, and where are things going there? So we know that we've sort of reached the top of that inflationary period, and we are now cutting. So we've had 2 cuts this year. The general consensus is that we're going to expect another 2 or 3. I think all 4 of the big banks, they've got various opinions on it, but we're expecting another 1% to 1.5% over the next year and a half. So every time that those rates cut, this varies between each situation, but the borrowing capacity would increase anywhere between sort of 15 to 20K, depending on your situation. So if you take Locale, which is our business, as a bit of a guide, I think last month we had 900 or 1,000 inquiries in total, right? So out of that, there's a small percentage that can do something. The people that can't do something, that they might be really keen, but they might be short, borrowing capacity of 20 or 40 grand. So all those people that are sidelined, not just from our business, but all the other businesses out there, as soon as rates cut, they're once or twice they're going to want to reassess where they're at. And they
Absolutely.
might then have the opportunity to go and do something, which then becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of rates cutting, demand increasing, prices in the market
more
increasing
money
as
freely
well.
available. Yeah,
It's more money to do things. Investors have more money's cheap, right? When money's cheap, we want to borrow, and we might want to lock that in.
people want to capitalise on it as well, so you get more people that are more bullish on the market when they do see the growth, so people jump in when they see growth.
That's right.
And we also have a really constrained construction pipeline. That hasn't gone away. It's improving. And build times are really, really solid now. But
sure.
Fundamentally, there's still a shortage of trades in Western Australia. We have compressed that build time, but we're not delivering enough homes each year. So there is a shortage every year, and we have targets as a state of what we need to be building, and we're falling short. So that undersupply is just being exacerbated, I guess, by a constrained construction pipeline.
That's right. You know, clients are quite surprised when we talk about the fact that trades, we're advertising in Ireland as far as Ireland, to bring people over and setting them up with an ABN and a bit of a stipend and whatnot to get them started, and that's almost desperation, right? For the lack of trade availability that we have. Outsourcing for trades creates another problem because they need to also live somewhere.
100%.
So
a chicken and egg sort of thing. But we need to build homes, but yeah, it's putting immense pressure on the rental market. And we also, the resource industry is doing really well as well. And that's been one of the biggest, headwinds our construction industry has faced. Western Australia's got an incredible resource industry, which is a powerhouse, and we're the engine room of Australia. But that does erode, I guess, the labour from the trade base and trade industry, because they see opportunity to go work in the resource industry. They can work FIFO, they can earn incredible money. They may not be out in the wind and sun laying bricks or whatever that may be.
That's right.
So that is something that probably other states don't have such a challenge that we do. So again, the fact that we're such a powerhouse is kind of is hurting us. So we don't see that construction pipeline catching up with the demand in the short term. So that's going to continue that supply issue and that demand.
I don't know what the answer to that is. I know Labor have talked about alternative construction methods to speed things up. I think that would be a great thing for the industry. How that looks, I'm really excited to see where that goes and how we're going to embrace that. And I think we will adapt. When I started, if you weren't building anything but double brick, people would scoff at you. And if the block wasn't 500 square meters, it was a shoebox, right? So we've had to adapt to things moving forward. Now, many homes built are brick veneer. We've definitely embraced that. They've been embracing it for years and years. on the East Coast, and it's just. Perth is very isolated, which is, I think, one of its strengths, because we kind of live in our own world, right? We've got amazing weather. We don't have humidity. We've got amazing, beautiful beaches. And, I did a lot of work with people from the East Coast, and consistently, every single time somebody comes here from I do love Sydney, by the way, but they come here from Sydney or Brisbane or whatnot, and they're like, oh my God, you've got no traffic, and the prices are so cheap here, and you're thinking, hang on, really? The traffic seems terrible to me, and prices have gone crazy, but everything's relative, right? So I think it would serve one to try to expand the myopia, right? You got to look over the fence and see what's it like in other cities, and what's it like in other countries. I've been fortunate, right? I've toured playing music to about 40 different countries, and seen a lot of the world over the years. Trust me, we've got it good here still, right? Things have gotten much harder, and one of the metrics of that is median house price against median income, and that has increased to a point that is has made it challenging for many people. The reality is that we really had it very, very good and very easy here for a long time. We've sort of caught up to the rest of the world. I'm not here to have any sort of opinion on geopolitics and why things has gone that way, and that's definitely beyond my scope. But life's pretty good. We've got healthcare. We've got nice roads. We've got schools. We've got a
low crime rate.
Low crime rate. I don't need to go to the shops and wonder if I'm going to get shot. Every other day. And other people might have a different opinion on that, but having lived in America, that has been a concern. It's a stress that is generally at the back of my mind. And the place I used to shop at, a place called Trader Joe's in a suburb called Silver Lake in LA, where I lived for many years. I would shop there every other day, and happened to be one day that I wasn't there, but a guy did come in there and held someone hostage and shot one of the checkout people and killed them, and that's something that I'm sure that happens every now and then in Australia, but the ratio of that versus other countries, which the people that love their guns don't really want to talk about, but it's the stats are there, right? Just getting back to the topic, life is pretty good here. We've got a lot to be thankful for,
and we've noticed that. Look, as a business, we're recruiting, we're hiring people as we scale, and the amount of applicants we've had from New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria is incredible. I haven't seen it, and that did start pretty much in sort of 2020, but it's just been this tsunami of people that are moving here, and they want to move here, and it's become somewhat of a neat place to move to is Western Australia or Perth.
That's right.
And we went through such a challenging time there from 2014 to 2000 and pretty much 1920, where everyone was leaving WA, and now it's gone this full flip. Everyone's seen the opportunity here from an income perspective, the lifestyle, the value for money that you have, the incredible weather, the lack of traffic. Obviously, there still is traffic, but it's pretty bloody good compared to other states. I don't see the states slowing down. And we've got the engine room of Australia. So our mineral and resources industry is it's just unbelievable, and it's just growing every single year.
Sure.
And we've just obviously found that recent big deposit in the Pilbara there, which is just an absolute mega deposit. So look, we don't anticipate the resourcing industry to slow down. Obviously, there's going to be cycles like there is with any industry with commodity prices. Fundamentally, we're going to be extracting resources from our Pilbara for a long time, and that's going to benefit WA, but Australia as well.
Well, yeah, I think it's really interesting you said that. Yes, I am working with several clients that are they're in Cairns or Brisbane or wherever they are, and they're building to move to Perth, or they've moved here already, and they want to build something themselves, which is great because yes, I remember. Before it was, there's always this kind of, inside joke about Perth being just boring, and everyone would, if you're going to stay in Australia, you're going to go to Melbourne or you're going to go to Sydney. I do love Melbourne and I do love Sydney as well, but it's interesting to see that script being flipped, and I think Perth is in the last however many years, there's been a significant redevelopment right on the waterfront, on the Esplanade, and I'd been away from Perth for many years after living in America, and came back and went to the city centre. I was like, whoa, just that whole area around Northbridge and the redevelopment of the station, all the shops and whatnot. So it's become a lot more cosmopolitan. I think Perth realised it had been way behind the times and way behind the standard, and I think to some degree it still probably is when you look at areas like Fitzroy or other pockets of Sydney, but it's getting better, right? You've seen the East Vic Park, the way that strip has gone, which has become very Melbourne-esque, which I love. A lot of individual shops, not a lot of chains,
a lot of cultures, different types of foods. Amazing.
That's right. Great food, really good food there, and yeah, it's definitely caught up. I think it's made itself more attractive, and it can now sort of hold its own weight a bit more in that sort of modern sense, and also just I think that the move of putting that the vertical campus, the university campus in the city is brilliant. It's gonna attract a lot of youth, and it will do a lot for the culture, I think, of that city.
Absolutely, love that diversity in the city. Obviously, Elizabeth Quay as well, which is fairly new, and that's Crown. Just done again, we're a water-based city. We have some of the best weather, so it's really nice that we're embracing that the water lifestyle, and Elizabeth Quay's just really connected that river sort of city urban lifestyle. It's just amazing.
That's right. Yeah.
So today we're talking about financial freedom. What defines financial freedom for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. So this answer is going to be different for a lot of people, but for me, it's time, right? So it's not things. It is to some extent because I like cars, and I like architecture, and I like being near the water, and all those things require money. But it's getting back to me. It's time. So it's time to be able to do the things I want. So, for example, between October and April, Perth has got some of the best kite surfing conditions on the planet. I would like to be able to take advantage of that as much as possible. And when you're kiting, it's going to be between 1 and 7 p.m., right? Yeah. So it's right smack bang in the middle of your workday. There's not many jobs that would, let you sort of take off because you just want to go for a kite. But having the freedom to work or not work because you want to go out and be on the water for a few hours, that to me is real wealth. And that's happiness and makes me feel just amazing. So I want to be able to do things like that as much as possible, and also spend time with the people that you love and care about, and have the freedom to do that, right?
Absolutely.
And also to be able to take care of your loved ones and be able to help those that might be less fortunate than yourself, and that to me is very important and very rewarding.
Absolutely. We can always go earn more money. We can acquire more assets, but we can't acquire more time. It's definitely a finite resource there. So, 100%. I love that.
It's Jim Carrey's got a really good one. There's a clip that circulates of him every now and then on the internet, and it's when he gets his third Oscar or Emmy or whatever it is, the one. For the people that haven't seen it, go and look it up. And he's holding his award, and Jim Carrey in his just brilliant sarcasm, and there's always some sort of like moral story behind it, right? Yeah. But he says. Back I used to think, God, if I could just have one of these Oscars, that it would just really be something, And he got his first one. He goes. And then when he got a second one, it's like, if I could just get another one of these, it would be. Then he got his two, and then he's, if I could just get a third. I think the point of that is that, you think that achieving a certain status or a financial goal or some kind of award, you think that your life's going to change, and you're going to suddenly just. Worries, but nothing really changes. At the end of the day, it's just a thing.
You've acquired more assets, but mentally you haven't changed.
That's right.
So
yes.
that's it's just whilst it's hyper important to to build wealth and set yourself up and create a lifestyle that you want, you also need to work and invest in your mental health and mental wealth, I guess, because it's super important. You can acquire all these assets, but whilst money can certainly help facilitate the happiness that you seek, you still need to be investing in your well-being as well.
I think so, in more of a, not in a mumbo-jumbo way, but in more of a spiritual sense, just to sort of, not in a religious sense by any means, but by a spiritual sense, that's sort of being, self-aware and sort of reflecting on things that are important, because capitalism would take you in the other direction and just tell you that you need more things, and you if you get more things, you'll be happy. When we all know that's most definitely, it's not the case. How many people are exorbitantly wealthy and extremely unhappy, right? There's been studies done that says beyond the ability to sort of take care of yourself and your loved ones, money doesn't really make that much difference in terms of your overall happiness. So what does, right? And I think that's a journey, obviously, that we're all on and exploring.
Absolutely. Continually learning and investing. And I heard something recently where what's wealth to them? And wealth to them was being able to go to a restaurant, take their family there, all their friends there, pay, and actually not care about the price on the menu.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just the undercurrent there is he's being able to celebrate being with his friends, his family, and doing things that he loves to do, and not really being freaked out about the money.
That's right.
So it's not necessary to acquire 400 properties, and there's these spruikers out there that are saying you need a Lamborghini and 40 properties to be as cool as them. For us, it's really identifying what matters to customers, and we would never push someone into something that's probably not right for them.
No, that's right. They have to really know that they want to do this, and that they do it for the right reasons. And yeah, there's a lot of the Lambo crew and the Andrew Tate community, and it's very easy to become brainwashed or influenced when you're maybe you're a younger guy, and you're not you might not be there yet, and you see somebody that has those assets, or they're taking pictures with pretty girls and whatnot, and they think, oh, if I do this, then I'll be like that, and it's not the right reason for doing things, and it's often very misleading, and I think very toxic in ways. And I think there needs to be more education and awareness around values, right?
Absolutely.
And what are those strong values? And we're in an era where if you pump enough money into the machine, the algorithm will feed you X, Y, Z things, and that's pretty dangerous, right? Because you might start on a path of trying to learn about investing, and then the algorithm goes slightly this way, and all of a sudden now you're a Tate bro, right, or whatever the hell they call them, and women are this, that, and the other, and that's another conversation, and I'm steering off track, but it can be pretty confusing out there in the landscape, and with consultants as well, and companies that sort of offer this sort of service. Unfortunately, I don't believe all of them are doing it for the right reasons, and there's very much I've seen the care factor can be pretty low, and I think that's in one way where I think that we are a point of difference, that we very much do care. We're empathic people in the office, and we just want to see everybody do well and do it as fairly as possible. And
absolutely
win-win, right?
Absolutely win-win. And we understand the industry. We understand the product that we're selling. We've been integrated into the product that we're selling for many years.
Sure.
We deeply understand property development. We understand construction. We've been in construction companies, led construction companies.
Sure.
We're not in it for a quick win. It's literally been our complete career from get-go. So yeah, it's something we're deeply passionate about, and integrity and reputation are one of the things that we protect, like a guard dog.
Yes.
Because it's a very, very, very small industry. Very small industry, and you need to protect that because we're in it for the long game. Like I said, there's people that come and go. There's people coming into this industry thinking there's some quick money to be made. But yeah, you got to protect that reputation and do what's right over the long term. That compounds. Do the right thing for a long period of time. It always wins. And that's the same with investing. Just do the right thing. It always compounds. with
Sure.
your money, be strategic with your money, don't overspend, live within your means, and invest. Over many years, that's always going to pay off.
Sure, and I think also the part of it is also is not sort of putting where your money mouth is and doing what you say. Essentially following the same path that you're helping others on, right? So you and I have been very active in investment for many years, and I'm continuing to do that. And the way that I would assist any clients that engage with me is the same way I've done it for myself and for my family and my parents, and are continuing on that journey of sort of growing that portfolio and reaching that, I guess, wherever that financial
100%.
freedom part is, right?
Yeah, and I guess from our own experiences, I've made plenty of mistakes, grazed my knees along the way, definitely bought the wrong assets, over-capitalised on assets, took on assets that needed too much renovation, and just about lost all my hair, what's left of it. I've overseen thousands and thousands of transactions when running building companies. So there is a whole lot of knowledge in there, and we sort of underestimate the knowledge that we have within ourselves. But that's something we do share with our customers versus someone that's come in from, 1 minute they could be standing at the Telstra shop, next minute they're selling you an investment property. Nothing wrong with Telstra shop, by the way, but obviously there's a level of understanding there where people fly into the industry, and that's where it's really important for customers to really understand what the values are behind the company that they're dealing with, what their leadership team knows about the industry, how long they've been in the industry, and the people representing them with their wealth journey, what they've been through.
Sure.
Have they got investment properties themselves?
Yes.
And how long have they been in the industry?
Experience versus acting, right? Because often, you put, again, nothing wrong with car sales, but in the industry, oftentimes there's a transition from car sales to here. You spend 2 weeks learning about the new home industry, and all of a sudden you're an expert, right?
Absolutely.
Which is a little bit scary because it's it sort of maybe on the first home buyer side it is a little bit different for sure, and again, I think experience most definitely helps that side of things. But from the investment side, definitely
They've got to walk the walk.
That's right.
Has financial freedom allowed you to follow your passions?
In a roundabout way. So I'm not sure if I've ever reached financial freedom, but I've certainly been in a position where my choices early on allowed me to go and do things that I would not have been able to, and I'll explain where that is. So, I started my investment journey when I was around sort of 26-ish, I think, I can't remember, any time between 25 and 27, and they were pretty successful, right? And God, when I think about what the median price was back then, it's crazy. But yes, I did a couple of had a couple of investment properties. I built one. One was just a block of land, and I made some good money out of them. And I was working really hard at the time. And early on, I since the age of 13, I've been playing in pubs and clubs and stuff as a guitar player, and I always knew that I wanted to follow that path to the fullest extent. So in a roundabout way, I ended up in Los Angeles a few times over the years, and realized that if I was going to really go anywhere, that's the place that I needed to be. That's where sort of everything happens. And I did sort of get to a point where I had some money in the bank, largely from the investments that I did. And for anyone else that's ever gone down this path or thought about it, when you move to a place like LA, which is it's horrendously expensive to live, and trying to make a living out of anything in the arts is pretty grim, even at quite a high level, right? Yep. So, and then you have to also be incredibly lucky in being in the right place at the right time and whatnot. And to some degree, I was. I moved to LA. I joined a fairly established band, and I had a career in that, and then touring, and also doing music for film and TV and video games, which is something that I'm still involved in. Nice. But if I was working 9 to 5 and that's all I did, would I have been able to do that? I've got very supportive parents, and bless them, I'm sure they would have helped as much as possible, but I don't know, and I don't know if I would have lasted. You basically need 50 grand in the bank when you go there to cover your rent for your first year and your food and expense. It's so money just kind of evaporates over there like water, So yes, making those decisions early on, I think, was a bit of a butterfly effect and allowed me to go and do all these other things and set up over there and really sort of follow that path. So I'm very grateful for those choices and being able to sort of have that initiative. And I guess, people are different. It's really interesting because like having investment property doesn't having debt or investment debt doesn't stress me out. I actually get stressed by not having enough investment debt, right? Because I'm then got too much tax liability. So I'm very much I've always been pretty aggressive in that format. I guess this comes from a lot of hundreds of thousands and thousands of hours of research and looking at the market. When something turns up, instinctively, you and I know if that's a deal, right? So if it is a deal, there's people like me and you that have more experience and more knowledge, and they're going to go and grab it, right? So when you find something that makes sense and the numbers line up and it's what we call a unicorn, you have to get it. And I always have. Generally, the properties I've bought, I might have discovered them that morning or the day before, or I might have offered it to a client, which is the most recent one of the recent one I got my keys for. I actually took it to a client, and I did tell her, if this is probably sounds like a load of bullshit that maybe people spin every now and then, but I said, if you don't buy this, I'm going to do it, and I actually did.
Yeah.
So
I walked through the property. Yeah, it's an amazing little property.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's a more recent one. I told the client I was going to buy one next door, and I did too, right? Because if it's good enough for the client, it's good enough for me too.
Absolutely.
And the way I would look for an asset for a client is exactly the same way that I look for myself, and often they are in tandem, right? So, yes, if you're in, I am working with a few guys that are sort of in guys and girls that are in their early 20s. I think the youngest client I had was 18. Wow. A girl called Taylor, a young woman now who's just become a mum.
Wow.
But when she did it against the advice of her entire family, her parents, and everybody in her corner was telling her, "Don't do it. This, that, and the other. You're going to lose money." She didn't. She took the initiative, and she's made about 170 grand in equity on her property, and she's ready to go again.
Incredible.
Right? So I'm very, very proud of her, and I'm going to work with her for years to come on her journey. And we your lives become intertwined. You have a very strong sort of you build quite a deep relationship moving forward when you go on this journey together, and it's something I really enjoy. And one other thing we see a lot is, especially with the young firefighter crew, right? So what do you make? 150 grand a year. How much in savings have you got? 2 grand. And they've got 2 grand savings because they go and piss it up every weekend, and they've bought a Land Cruiser or a Hilux, and they've got an $80,000 car loan, and they've got a jet ski and all this stuff. And that's great. Look, if you need, sometimes you need to get some of that out of your system. But at some point you've got to go, right, what am I doing? Do I want to be on the mines forever? And if I don't, if you do, that's awesome. But if you don't, and most people don't, how am I going to get out of that? And it's formulating a plan, right? And it's also a case of if I can't do it now, well, what do I need to do to be able to get there? And that's something I think that we do excel at, and sort of will, in a sense, will hold your hand and guide you towards that process and get you set up. And over time, it will pay off. It always has throughout history. And I don't think things are going to change.
Absolutely.
And that's another conversation about, well, why is that going to change? Well, there was a time when the value of the dollar was connected to the value to gold, right? And it isn't. It's now, money's now valued, it's fabricated, right? It's out of thin air. And if we don't have it enough, we'll just print more. Well, what could go wrong, right? So over the course of the pandemic, I think 80% of the entire US dollar reserve currency was printed in that period. And I don't know if you've seen the repercussions of that. So one could argue, well, are assets increasing in value, or is it the value of money that's decreasing? It doesn't really matter to me. I just know that I want to have an asset, I don't want to hold the paper. I want bricks and mortar, or I want some metals or something that I know is going to continue to appreciate over
That you can
time.
look back for decades, that has always performed consistently.
Decades, centuries, millennia, right? Yep. Even so, I don't know why that would change. It's not changing right now. I think in some way it all comes back down to human psychology, right? And how we value things. And there's some really interesting books on. There was one written in the 1800s which I found really interesting. It's something to do with hysteria. I'll have to look up the name of this, but it was. It looks at various periods of mania throughout history, going back to the 1600s, and one of them that they analysed was the tulip crisis. Yep. I think at one point a bunch of tulips was worth the same amount as a cottage, right? And because it became this status of affluence and wealth, and it's just crazy how in a very short period of time you see the same thing with crypto now, right? There's just a lot of mania, and
especially for the coins, the new coins that are released and don't necessarily have any sort of infrastructure behind them. But people pile in, and it's and look, people have done really well out of that, and I'm not criticising crypto in any way, shape or form, but what we understand is property, and we know it's always performed over a long period of time. And the worst decision in property is making no decision, and overthinking as well. Like, I'm a hyper overthinker. That's who I am as a person. And there's been so many points that I look back at, and I've overthought a situation, and I've got, it's not quite right. I'm just going to park that, and I'm going to find the perfect property. Perfect property doesn't exist, and then I've been out of market. I've missed a boom or missed a cycle over a few years, and absolutely kicked myself. So it's. Like I said, the worst decision is no decision. Stop trying to time the market. It's all about time in market. Just get in and hold. It's a long game. With any asset that is highly volatile, like a crypto or something like that, it is stabilizing, but you have those huge rushes. You also have those huge crashes. So absolutely. Yes, it's a great product, crypto, if you want to make some money, if you know what you're doing, but property, get in, hold, wait. It's going to pay off.
Sure. Yeah, and look, there's two things I want to touch on there. Going back to time in the market, the third property I ever built, which is actually one that I retained to live in. Initially, it was an investment. Again, I made some mistakes on this one. I bought a big block with a big house thinking that was going to do well because we want big family homes. At the same time, my brother built a small 4x2 on 288 square meters, and he made more equity than I did. Not percentage, I mean the actual dollar amount, which I thought was wild, and I learned a lot from that exercise, which is something that I also... I take that lesson and I apply that with my clients when they're looking for stuff as well.
Absolutely. There's a perception out there that blue chip properties in like huge big blocks of land that are blue chip locations, and yes, they perform well. But there's an article out today saying some of the western suburbs have actually dropped a median house price. They obviously had a huge run. But fundamentally, and don't get me wrong, I've been caught up in this blue suburb, blue chip thing, and western suburb blue chip cycle, and I live there myself. But fundamentally, we've seen entry point properties in really great locations that are close to infrastructure, coastlines, Swan Valley, whatever that may. They have performed better than any other properties, and they're getting the best yields on the properties. They've had the best capital growth, and there's an absolute demand for those properties because they're still the most affordable from a rental price point of view. They're new, they are great for families. They've got schools, they've got like-minded communities around them. And you always have a tenant in there because people need affordable housing. Sure.
Yes, it's something I say often with clients, but I've always looked for a sandpit, right? Yep. What I mean by I look for a sandpit is that I'm not interested in going to Morley, right, in a suburb that's fully, even though it's very close to the city, and there's investors that want to find a block and carve it up. Good, you go and do that. It doesn't work for me. I can't make that stack up, right?
Correct, and I've been there. I've done the Morley, I've done the Bayswater, and I've done the Greenfields, and the Greenfields paid off.
They've killed it, right? Even recently, my dad, I was looking for something for my dad, and he had some equity. He wanted to go and buy something. I looked every single day, and I mean, it really taxed me, but it was every day for about 3 weeks. I just couldn't find one single thing that stacked up on the market. And by stack up, I mean I have pretty high standards of what I consider stacking up. None of it made any sense. Not one, right? There might be a deceased estate or a divorce or something where somebody needs to sell and they'll drop it.
It's an exception, not the rule.
It's an exception. It's not going to happen in this market when you've only got 3,800, 3,700
Correct,
homes
and
for
even if they're
sale.
under the price of the property by $100,000, it's always going to be driven up because demand is there, and it's very, very hard to buy something on the established market underpriced because they're going to have 1,000 people calling for it, and it becomes a bidding war anyway.
Well, what do we get for inquiry, right?
Yeah.
It's like a broken record. How can we assist? I've been looking for established for 11 weeks. I've put in 7 offers. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm going to go and build. There'll be a time when it makes more sense to go and buy established, and I'm sure we've talked about this. We might look at then that as an offering, but it's not right now. I don't know when that's going to change in Perth, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. Not until we get that flood of supply. But just sort of going back to time in the market. So before I went to actually, I think while I was in America, one of my that property I was speaking of came to completion, and that was when the market turned in 2014, right? So it turned pretty quick. I think 1 month it was valued at 640, and I think I got an offer for about 580, and like an idiot, I went, "Oh, that's too low." In hindsight, I wasn't an idiot. I'm actually very glad that I kept the property. But then, 3 months later, that I wasn't getting a look over 550 for that, and I thought, wow, that was a pretty quick drop of about 18% or whatever that was. So even at that point, I still would have made money, but I thought that's not enough profit. I'm just going to hold it, so I rented it out. Because I was able to weather that, and it was a long period of stagnation in Perth. I'm sure you remember.
Absolutely.
Yep, everybody got sick of it. I think people are only now starting to change their...
West Australians specifically, because as soon as the market turned, all the West Australians liquidated their rental properties, which was the biggest mistake they could have done. I was one of them, to a degree. I got rid of some.
Well, just like a stock, just because you sell something doesn't mean that you can't buy back in at a higher price and still do very well. It's just one of those conditions, right? So that's very, very hard to do. From human, that's taken me years to adopt that approach.
Absolutely.
And I'm comfortable with that now. I'm comfortable to buy when there's blood on the streets, which is incredibly difficult to do because nobody wants to buy when the news is bad. But I think part of learning this is going through all of those cycles and experience it. You have to experience the emotions. You have to experience the swings and understand what they are in order to be impartial from it. There's probably savants out there that might have had that from the get-go, but nobody I know. And the same thing with investing, with trading especially. I'd traded basically full-time for a couple of years. I used to trade futures and options and all that kind of stuff. And I actually did love it, but it was so stressful. Just like property, I became obsessed with. You got to become obsessed with whatever you're interested in to do well, right? So I'd read every book on the sun about it, got stacks and stacks of stuff, and now people revert to YouTube, but I don't think that was very much a thing back then. So you got to become overwhelmed with information and take that on. And part of that with property journey is there's no shortcut to it. You have to experience that in order to be impartial from it, I believe, which is why, again, coming back to partnering with somebody with considerable experience might save you a decade or more of wasted time and bad decisions.
Absolutely.
So going back to that holding, so never overextend, right? You never, ever, ever overextend. You want to be in a position where you have a buffer, you can take care of your loved ones, or there's a job change, or you're weathering the downturns in any sort of market cycle. So that property that I held, so it's now worth closer to 900,000, right? So I've done well going forward. The equity in that property has allowed me to go and do a couple of other ones, right? Which is where the magic starts to really happen. It's where your growth compounds and whatever your goals are. If maybe that might be paying off your house. You've got 3 properties, they all go up 20%. Well, guess what? You can maybe sell some of them and pay down your owner-occupier debt, and that might be, as we've talked, financially free for some people.
No, I love that. So, is financial freedom achievable for everyone, or is it a luxury?
That's a good question. I mean, there are some tangible aspects to it, right? Income. So if you're working part-time and make $35 grand a year, it's going to be very difficult to get into a property by yourself. But you also might decide to partner up with someone in that sort of instance. It's become more difficult, I think, than it has been previously. I think when you and I started, you could bag groceries and you pretty much qualified for a loan, right?
Sure.
For a home loan, which was pretty amazing, and people still said no.
Yeah.
Right. I think it all sort of comes with you got to have a little bit of a plan in place, right? So number one, you have to have the serviceability. The serviceability may be a hindrance to some people because there needs to be X amount of income to be able to service a loan. Most people probably can't do that by themselves unless you're on the mines or some other sort of six-figure profession. It's become quite difficult now. Where it does start to make a lot more sense is you go in a partnership, whether that be with family or with your significant other, or maybe I've got one that who's the mother and her son are going to go and do an investment together, right? So, which is really nice. I'm a big advocate for keeping it in the family, as that's been very fortunate for my family, and that's not an option for everyone, I understand. But also just, getting into the habit of going, right, well, how much do I have saved? And it might be a deposit thing. We've got all kinds of schemes that will assist. If you're a first home buyer, there's a government scheme, there's Key Start. If you are an investor, even there's a deposit assist scheme we have with one of our builders, which is really, really powerful. The crux of that is you have the income there to show serviceability, but you might not have that deposit. We can then load that deposit into that build and move forward from there, which allows people to do things which they might then have to otherwise wait 6 months or a year, and then you might miss another 10% of growth or so in that time frame. So yeah, I think savings plans. We've seen the savings plans to be very, very powerful to keep people focused and on track. It seems to me that sometimes people who are on 60 grand seem to be able to save better than those that are on 150k. It's really bizarre, but it's just a case of formulating a plan and having a goal, and it all starts with an idea, right? You think, well, this is where I want to be. Well, how am I going to get there? And then it's sort of chipping away at those blocks and it's commitment as well. Like anything in life, if you want to give something a red hot crack, you're going to have to really go all in. Sure.
And revenue or income is a key part of that. So going in with a partner, like you said, we've got a client we're dealing with currently. They're two mates, so they didn't qualify individually. So they're like, let's do it together. Gets them in the market. They'll get an uplift in equity, and then they can leverage that equity and potentially do it again. But they're building their wealth, and they're doing it collectively. Also, we've seen people, they step up. They may go into FIFO, or they may get their partner to step up and work a bit, an extra couple of shifts or whatever that may be. And that's your gateway to be able to create that financial freedom. So there is a level of accountability that you need to take as the person that wants to make this happen.
Sure.
We do live in an incredible state with incredible income possibilities. And there are schemes, like you said, that do make it a lot easier to get into the market. Yes, it's gotten harder, but it's still very achievable for a lot of people to get into the market.
Absolutely.
So it's taking that level of accountability, and having that mindset, I guess, and saying, I have to make this happen, and digging deep to make it happen. And we're here to help. We're here to strategize.
Sure.
We'll tell you exactly where your income needs to be or what your partner's income needs to be. But yeah, it's committing to that cause.
Well, I think there can be a lot of fear and nervousness around it as well, right? Especially if it's your first investment. A lot of people get some jitters. I'm shitting myself, but here I go. And then there's others that can do it. We do every step that we need to. We get to the final phase, and then they just disappear off the face of the earth because they've bottled out. That's okay. Look, that they might not have been ready. That might be a mistake of mine of maybe not having them prepared enough. Whatever that is, that's something that is an emotional part of it. And look, it's not going to work for everyone. Some people just might not be able to handle that side of things because there might be other things going on in their life, and that's totally fine. Unfortunately, that will probably translate into not sort of achieving that financial freedom or that equity that they might have done. Even in the space of a few months, I think people will be able to look back and go, oh man, I wish I did that, because now we've seen prices of blocks go up 30 grand overnight. Right?
Absolutely. And there's talks that they're starting to consider increasing again. Speaking to some of the major developers, the demand is really coming back, and obviously costs with civils, that's not going away. So they're talking about they say round 2, but it's probably round 10 with price increases of what we experienced for the last 4 years. We had a pause and a breathe, but now we've seen the listings diminish again. That market's starting to ramp. The interest rates are coming back. Here comes the next round of price increases. So it's imminent.
Sure, and I think also one thing to remember is that it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a 4x2 on 400 square meters at 30k from the city where you're paying 750k for that package, right? It starts small if you're not sure, or if you're worried about the outgoings and the liability. Go and grab a townhome for mid 500s in Greater Melbourne, or do a small 3x2 or a 2x2 on a 180 or 225 square meter block facing a park, which I'm sure is going to do well. They're going to rent out, but you just take smaller bites.
Absolutely.
That might be going and grabbing an apartment for yourself off the plan. But just get your foot in the market, get some depreciation happening, feel what it feels like. Experience what it feels like to own that property, and it just. Even if you break even, right, it will be an amazing learning experience which will allow you to do other things. You need time and you need experience to do well in this field. Unless you get really lucky, we talked about crypto. In my experience, even people that do know what they're doing, who are whizzes with charts or social media, however people buy things on Twitter or whatever, making it's one thing, and then retaining that wealth is another thing. And I think probably 1 out of every 1,000 people might, quote unquote, make it.
Yeah, 100%. And you always hear about them. It's like people when they go to the casino as well. You always hear about the wins. You don't hear about the losses.
That's right. Yeah, and if you spend any time in that industry, most people will lose money. Most people lose money on the stock market because they think they're smarter than the market, right? Yep. Well, one of the smartest investors who's ever lived, Warren Buffett, what does he say? He advocates to just buy the S&P 500, right?
Sure. And hold.
Buy the index, because over time, that's going to, generally, it will do better than most people will by trying to outsmart it.
Absolutely.
So, slow and steady.
Absolutely. And there's fears. Look, I think as you mature in the investing space, there's fears of people potentially losing money, or fears of making the wrong decision. So they make no decision and they validate that. For me, opportunity cost is a real big one. So you have your capital sitting there. You might have enough for a deposit. Yep. And you've got that sitting in a bank account at a minimal interest rate. And you make no decision. If you were to make a decision, put that 5% deposit down, buy that investment property, accumulate $100,000 dollars worth of equity and capital growth and depreciation benefits over 12 to 18 months. People need to consider that. Opportunity costs are real, and they're essentially robbing their future self of opportunity by making no decision. So it's very easy to justify no decision, but you need to really consider going, no decision is actually going to cost me X, Y, Z if I was to invest that money in a really safe long-term asset.
Sure, and I think one of the things that people overlook, and certainly something that I overlooked, and a lot of this information wasn't as readily available when I started my investment journey, and it wasn't. Somebody mentioned this. I think Australia talks about property and mortgage rates basically more than any other nation on earth. It's sort of ingrained into our day-to-day being now. I didn't know. I thought that might have been just because we're in the industry, but apparently it's not. It's pub conversations and family dinners and all that sort of thing. But one of the things that I didn't realize how powerful this was until I sort of got further down the track was depreciation and how powerful that can be against your taxable income, especially if you are in a higher tax bracket of paying 40 cents on the dollar or more. And also why building is incredibly beneficial as an investment. So often people go, I don't want to build, I'm going to go and buy an established property, which is totally fine, right? And so they might go and buy one that was built in 2018, right? So $700,000 property built in 2018 versus a $700,000 property in the same suburb that was built in 2025. First of all, the newer property is probably going to appreciate a little bit more. You might be able to ask for a bit more rent because it's brand new, hasn't been lived in, etc., etc. But the big part of that is depreciation. So build costs, as you know, has increased rapidly since COVID. I don't know what the percentage is, 50% or something like that.
Probably more now.
Probably more. But there's a misconception. So the depreciation is not calculated on the value of your property. It's calculated upon the construction cost at completion, the construction value at completion. That's very, very important, because if you built that property in 2018, that might have cost you $200,000, right, as a turnkey build. Now it's going to cost you about anywhere between sort of 350 to 370, depending on, what's a spec, how big is it, what's the bushfire, this, that, and the other. So what does that mean? You're almost doubling your depreciation and whatever that tax benefit is, right? So that might be the difference between you claiming $8,000 a year versus $15,000 a year, which will fluctuate, diminishes over time, as you know. But just a bit more of a sort of blanket look at it, you might go, oh, well, it's only $8,000. I want to get the benefit straight away. Well, it's not, right? You do that after 5 years. That's might be 35, 40 grand that you've lost out on. So over time, it's very, very powerful. It's why I've always built for investment, why I'm doing it right now, and I'm going to continue to do that until I find a screaming opportunity at me in the market where I'm compelled to go and buy that.
Correct.
I haven't found them yet.
Also, purchase price, there's stamp duty associated with land versus a total...
stamp duty.
Yeah, correct.
That's right. So the... even people who are quite educated in this, sometimes they miss the fact that when you go and buy a established property, you're paying stamp duty on the entire purchase price. So for $700,000 property, that's what, 30 grand or so, 32 grand with fees and charges and transfer and all that stuff. And for a block of land, for that sort of package, your stamp duty might be between $8,000 and $10,000. There are holding costs, of course, during the course of construction.
Yep.
But you take your stamp duty, your holding costs, and then you weigh that up with your depreciation. I've found that it works out much better to go and build.
So, what are some small steps people can take to work towards financial freedom?
I think it all starts with a conversation, right? So I'm probably guilty of this myself, but I won't look at solar as one of them, right? I've been thinking about getting solar for probably years now, and I've never really the landscape seems complex and confusing, and you get this rebate, and then this guy says, "Oh, we'll do it for you," and there's no upfront cost, and it's I just haven't had the focus to go and think about it, right? But as soon as somebody came to the house and sat down and talked to me about it, I understood it, and I was very comfortable, and I've put solar on now. And
nice.
I think it's saving me, $30 a week or something,
nice.
Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it will pay for itself in 2 or 3 years. So I probably could have found that information online and whatnot, but again, it was confusing to me, and you don't know who to trust and whatnot. So I had to talk to someone and sort of develop that relationship and trust there, and then I was able to sort of proceed and help educate me too, right? So partner with someone, talk to someone, talk to us, or ring around and see who fits. I might not be a fit for you. That's okay. I'm not going to be a fit for everyone, right? And I'm comfortable with that. I've only got a certain amount of time every week, and there's only a certain amount of people I can work with, right? But give us a call and just have a chat and feel it out and think, is this somebody that I can work with for the next year and a half or 2 years or 5 years that I want to be on this journey with, right?
So the worst thing you can do is learn something.
That's right. That's right.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, and you might do nothing at the end of it, but then you've explored it and you've sort of ticked that off. Or maybe it sets you up for, things need to marinate sometimes, right? And it might marinate for 3 months or 6 months or a year. People have come back to me sometimes a year later and gone, right, I'm ready to do something now. It's great.
Nice.
All right, you've missed about 50 grand of market movement here, but that's all right.
We've got more ahead of us.
We've got more ahead of us, and if you're not ready at that time, you'll know when you're ready, right? And if you're not ready, I'm not going to ask you to do anything, because you can't be in a shaky sort of position. You've got to be gung-ho and excited about it. I want you to be excited about it, I want you to be excited as I am every time I embark on something.
Love it. Great. So that's today's episode. A big shout out to Oumi Kapila for sharing all his insights about financial freedom and his journey along the way. So I hope this chat's helped you redefine what financial freedom means and what the steps are for you to take action to make financial freedom happen for yourself. Thank you for sharing time with us. If you like this episode, please make sure you share and subscribe.